Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another session of My Story by Title Kata. Today we have Mr. Ashish Toshniwal with us. He was born and brought up in Kolkata, but now he has moved to Silicon Valley to build his company YMediaLabs. And it is one of the top 50 most admired private companies by Forbes. He's also an early adopter and early investor in tech startups. And I would now request Mr. Ashish Toshniwal to take the stage, and Mr. Rumta, our president, Thai president.
Get the real deal out of Ashish. They know each other much longer than we have known. I have just known him for a few minutes now. So good. I think so. Ashish said that he wants it in an interview format, so we'll try to make it interesting, right? And I've already excused myself that I have to run out for my son's birthday at 5 o'clock. So, but I think this will be a wonderful evening, and I think Ashish will be able to throw light on lots of interesting aspects. We have been chatting for almost like 45 minutes, and we have found a lot of similarities. Like Ashish also studied in South Point, just like me. So great people study in the same places, right? And but you miss it when Ashish goes to a Ivy League college in US, and I stay back studying in a good old Xavier's. And I think those are very few differences between us, but I think there are more similarities. So I think it's a good opportunity to grill Ashish today about how he built his business. So I will stop here and I'll throw some very interesting pointed questions to Ashish and let Ashish answer them, and then Mohnish will bring out the devil side of Ashish later on. Okay, good. So I think so. Ashish, tell us a little bit about the early days. When you were in India. What I mean, did you always wanted to start a company in US, or was it by accident, or you always wanted to be an entrepreneur, or it was like again a situation that came which made you an entrepreneur? Because a lot of time people make very beautiful stories that मेरा बहुत बड़ा विजन था, मैं ये करना चाहता था, वो करना चाहता था, इसलिए मैं एंटरप्रेन्योर बन गया. बट असल में होता क्या है ना कि कोई ना कोई धक्का लगता है, कोई सिचुएशन आती है कि आदमी एंटरप्रेन्योर बन जाता है. ये मेरा सोच है. तो why don't you share your story? What made you an entrepreneur from a student who went to US for studies?
Thanks, Abhishek. So my journey, again, as Abhishek said, went to South Point. Then after class 12, Monish and I met Monish the first time at the airport. And I didn't know Monish before that. And Monish and I went to the same college in US. And one of the big things in my case, what happened was I was fortunate enough that I went to US in my high school after boards exams. And what happened, we were in New York, we were in the bus, and they were like this was 1999, and there's like newspaper and all that stuff in the bus. And I just picked up a newspaper and I was reading the average salary of an engineer in the US, right? And it was $56,000. And I'm doing the math, like, if you make $56,000, what else do you want? You can retire, right? And then came back, was very determined to go to US. And in fact, like 3 months or so before going to US, my plan was almost cancelled. Like my parents were not sure. They were like, "You're too small right now, cannot really go to US. No one in our family has ever been to US. You want to go to, after class 12, it doesn't make any sense." So somehow, only son and all that stuff. Somehow it all worked out. Went to the US, and one of the things I would say, Abhishek, is in my case, I definitely wanted to have my own startup, but I didn't know what exactly it would be, right? graduated, worked at Dell Computers in Austin, Texas for 3 years, and pretty much learned everything there what not to do, which is also very important in life, you know. And then moved to the Valley in 2008, worked at eBay for 1 year, and back then what happened was iPhone App Store was launched, 2008 timeframe or something, and we started developing an app on the App Store. This was app number 54, and this was to teach kids ABCD 1, 2, 3, 4 on iPhone, iPad. And we got this, we pushed the app and we got this email back saying, I love what you're doing. Let me know how I can help. Best, Steve. And that email from Steve Jobs like changed our trajectory of the life, company, all that stuff. But it was a serendipity, it was not planned. We were not expecting anything like that. In fact, when we got the email, I told my co-founder, don't get too excited, this is probably fake, let's move on in life. And then we responded back, you know, he was very prompt to respond back that one of the backlash we were getting that you're bringing Montessori School of Teaching on iPad, which is you're bringing technology to Montessori School of Teaching, which was like, you're going to cause brain cancer in kids and all that stuff. And so we wrote to Steve Jobs that this is what is happening, and he said, keep doing what you're doing, you'll prove the critics wrong. And build the app and see what happens, and that app did well early on, but then after a few months the traffic dropped. But what happened as a byproduct of all this experience was we got connected to Apple because of Steve Jobs. And then Apple became a client of ours. And one of the big thing was iPhone technology was very unique. You know, the whole stack was Objective-C. So it's compared to web, you know, there was a lot of differences. And we were probably one of the very few people who actually knew how to develop stuff on iPhone. And at that point, honestly, it was more of a hobby than business because it was not real. You know, you're trying to do something. And it pretty much felt like that probably for 4 years, to be honest, right? And there were a few big customers we cracked after 3-4 years, which made the business very real. And I would say early on, and you know, you watch on YouTube how like you got to follow your passion and this and that, but the challenge is, for most of the people, it's very hard to know what you're passionate about. I mean, that's what the fact is, right? Like, I feel follow your passion works very well if you're a singer, you're a sportsman, because you know, you started doing that when you were 4 or 5 years old and now you've become a professional in that. But when you're an entrepreneur, I think it's not just about follow your passion, but it's about follow the change. You know, where you see success, you double down on that, and then when you double down on that, you become more successful, and then you become passionate about what you're doing. It kind of works a little backwards, yeah. I would say. Would you agree, Abhishek?
So I think, you know, you do things and then you realize you enjoy it, and then you do more of it, exactly. Then you further realize you enjoy it more and more, and I think you get into that, I would say, a positive loop, which takes you a point where you say, you know, this is what I'm born for, this is what my life is destined for, and I think that is when you kind of realize that.
Yeah.
And I think I also very well relate with that very interesting thing that you said. In Silicon Valley, a lot of people say you have got product market fit. A lot of people say that you have got that big break. So I think every company gets that big break at one point of time or other. Like, you know, we can call it a green swan or whatever you want to call, because obviously it was not a black swan. So, but again, these are unique events that happens, and you know, it's all about you, how you capitalize on that. So I think congratulations that you really capitalized on it and built, YMediaLabs and what it is today. And but again, my original question did not get answered. So what made you make how did you get into building the apps in the first step? You know, that was the app number 53. What was the app number 1? And what got you in making that? So you were having a good job, you were working in eBay, all settled, life is good. What was that sudden spike or that hormone rush inside you, or that was just an experiment? What was that?
So Abhishek, I actually tried something doing a Craigslist. The Craigslist is like, what is it called?
Listing classes.
Listing
Like
website.
Quicker.
Right? Quicker of US, right? And it's probably the most successful early websites in the US, right? And we started to do something for that, staying in US for the India market in 2007 or so. But clearly it didn't work, you know, and and we were like, this is not working. And then we built some Facebook apps. We were, as I said, like following the change it was not any grand vision, but it was a bunch of experiment and see what happens. And we built some Facebook apps. Again, it did very well early on, but Facebook changed their policy. The traffic dropped overnight. But fortunately, App Store was launched in 2008. And it was such a fresh platform, it was such a great device that I have been hooked since then. I have like used every iPhone every year since then, and it was more of an experiment, Abhishek, than we know that this is going to work. And I would say that experiment, we were also lucky that back then people were like, oh, iPhone is for high school kids, it's not mainstream, BlackBerry is the device for real people, and we were like, okay, whatever it is, let's just try something. And then this idea, we got connected to a person who runs a Montessori school in the US, and he had a great idea of like, how can we bring Montessori to iPad? So we came up with how can we build this product to educate kids. So that was the idea behind it. But what happened was that startup didn't do very well, or that idea didn't do very well, but what came out of it was YML. That we got connected to Apple and we got connected to other brands and so on and so forth.
So I think it's a very interesting thing, and I think there is another very big debate that goes on, and a lot of times my fellow friends in this room and also at the national level, they think that the only nirvana to build a good business is to build a product company. Right? And I have always maintained that in gold rush only few people discover gold, but anyone who's selling spades definitely make money. So I have stuck to that model, and you have stuck to that model. So I would like to also know from you. I have my own reasons which I am not going to disclose today. We will know you better. So what made you stick to a service business model where, as in Silicon Valley, everybody goes into Silicon Valley is kind of the mecca of product businesses, right? Every other person you meet is talking about a grand product that will make him a billionaire, right? What made you continue to believe in a service business model and continue to be successful at that, and avoid that distraction of that $1 billion exit?
So Abhishek, one of the early thing was we were actually doing product development and doing a product on the side along with services, which was the biggest reason of how we were twice got like so close to not able to make payroll, actually. Because we were doing both and we were trying to fund doing product using the money which we are earning from services, and I would say that is a recipe of disaster. That is why it took us 3 years and we were going in circles, like trying to figure out what we should do. And then after 3 years, we made a call, you know what, we cannot do this both together. And we decided that we are going to just focus on services business, because iPhone was a new platform, new technology, not a lot of competition. And we wanted to bet big on that platform. And some of the product ideas which we tried, it didn't work, and we didn't want to try another idea and probably run out of cash or something at that point, because it takes a lot of investment. And that experience makes me feel that when you are doing something, focus on one thing. And there's nothing wrong in doing product. Obviously, a lot of companies have been successful, but in that route is more like you focus on designing, building product, you raise money, and then 100% go all in, rather than do this back and forth. And that has been the journey for me. And as I said, I kind of followed the success more than anything else. and doubled down on services business and kept the focus and removed all distraction. And now, Abhishek, like, even though we don't run a product business inside YML, we are very focused on building product design and product experience and digital experience with other brands like American Express, Apple, Google. But I have personally invested in a lot of product companies. And then YML, when they design product for some startups, we would take equity, as part of remuneration. That way we have equity, but then we are not directly, doing that, because doing product company, you need a leadership which is 100% exclusively focused on that every day, rather than 2 days I'm going to service and 3 days I'm going to think about product.
Fair enough. I think my experience has been very similar, so I think it revalidates that. And I want to revalidate another experience of mine, because at the end of the day, हर जगह का एक ही प्रॉब्लम है, घर की मुर्गी दाल बराबर. तो मैं बोलूँगा तो लोग सुनेंगे नहीं, तो शायद आप भी सुन लें. So few days back, I was having a chat with an entrepreneur running a software service business, and he was saying, आपके लिए बोलना बहुत आसान है. आप तो बहुत पैसे खर्चा करके, आप तो बहुत मार्केटिंग के अंदर स्पेंड करके, आपके पास तो बहुत बड़ी सेल्स टीम है. You can build a business, you can grow the business, you don't worry. आपको चिंता की क्या जरूरत है? And I told him, boss, I have got really only 3 people who close sales for me. And you don't really need a big sales team in today's world. If you have a big sales team in today's world, you are doing something wrong, right? And I validated this with Ashish when we met in our office, and he has some very interesting thoughts, and he will be able to share how big a sales team he has got. And I think you will understand that it's not about marketing money that brings business. It's something totally different, and I will let Ashish talk about that.
So Abhishek, it is actually a very popular question in our industry in general, right? And what I've realized is, in our business, some of the tipping point has been that if a current customer is not giving us repeat business, then we don't have a business. Because the cost of acquiring new customer is so high that we just cannot have a profitable business in the long run. So what we did was, on one side, when we get a client, let's make sure we are delivering what they are asking today, but also making sure we have a long-term relationship with that same client. That has worked very well in our case. And then we have only one person out of 300 people. We have 150 people in the Bay Area, and then we have 150 people here in Bangalore too. And there's only one person who's 100% focused on new business, which is sales today. And the big reason has been that, and she's also focused on just mostly inbound, to be honest. She's not cold calling or doing this cold messaging and all that, but it has built over the past 10 years, every year. It is more about building on reputation and brand and referrals. And that has been the model, how we have scaled the business over the years. And one thing I remember that, in 2012, we started having all hands every month, which is, I'm talking to the entire company first Monday of every month. And until today, we have that meeting. And I told the whole team that, lot of issues we were facing, that like, man, the customer is paying us this much, we have this many hours, they're asking this much, how do we do, and all that. I was like, don't worry about anything. Just make sure that the customer is very happy, and then we get repeat business. Even though we made a few business in loss, but in the long run, that sentiment has been the cornerstone for our company. That if the customer is not giving us repeat business, we have a big challenge, in the business overall. And that sentiment is the reason how we have managed with just one person. And since 2013, we have grown at the rate of 50 to 60% every year.
So I think what Ashish says, I think it resonates very well. It's word of mouth is what is the real marketing engine for any business. You know, if you don't have word of mouth and you are spending money on advertising or anything else, you know, it's going to be futile. And that's why, you know, in a lot of my sessions that I have taken in past, I've always said it's always PR above advertising, right? So it's not advertising and then PR. So at the end of the day, people got to talk good about you, then only other people will come and do business with you. And I think it's a wonderful case study to validate that whole fact, right? That with only one salesperson, that also inbound, running a service business which is in a highly competitive industry, right? We know how competitive it is. There are 10,000 companies, you know, in India alone doing the same business. Globally, if you see, I think few 100,000 businesses doing the same business, and someone getting inbound leads, and his one person is only busy closing that inbound lead and closing business at a very high value, which is phenomenal. So, I mean, another myth that I have continuously seen people struggle with is about, you know, to build a business, I need investment, I need cash. And a lot of people don't even start because they don't have cash, right? I understand that, you know, obviously you must have had cash to pay for yourself for a few months, but besides that, how much money did you started with actually? And how did you manage to build the business without any external investor? That's one thing I know, that you didn't take any initial external investment.
So, you know, one of the things, Abhishek, was in 2009, we started in March, which was the bottom of the crash.
Yeah.
And, you know, I will admit that I tried to raise cash, but I didn't get any. And I got so frustrated after 1 or 2 years that I was like, I'm wasting too much time, not focusing on business, but like trying to meet investors who's wasting my time and hoping that they are going to fund my business. And early on, it was, I remember my savings was like more like $13,000 back then. And you know, I literally put like $4,000 or so, and I lost probably $4,000 in that crash also, which was a big shock to me. And at that point, it was all about like, let's just focus on building, and we'll worry about other things later. And so we kept the focus on building, and you know, the fact is that it took us 3 to 4 years to get to a stable stage. In fact, today I've invested in 22 startups overall. Some of them are in India, and a lot of founders would come to me and ask for, you know, I have this brilliant idea, and you know, this is the market size, and this is my vision, and all that stuff. And I would take the meeting, and you know, and I would never say yes in the first meeting, because I also want to know what can you do without cash and how much progress you can make until you've validated your idea to some extent. And it doesn't have to be you have to sell, you know, $1 million or something, but you have to have validation that these are the customers who are actually paying for my service or product. And then once you get to that stage, and you can show more repeat business coming from the same customer, whether, you know, in consumer segment. Well, just take Uber's example. You know, it's not like you just use Uber once. You're using Uber over and over and over again, and you can show that type of validity. That is the time when you should raise money to scale the business rather than validate business.
So again, I think this gives a good idea about at what time we need to raise money. There's another very interesting terminology that has come out of Silicon Valley's product market fit. Right? Every investor who has says salt, you know, uses this terminology, which is I'm not against this terminology. I think it's a good one. But I mean, in your opinion, how would you accept that you have reached a product market fit? I mean, you have invested in so many companies. A lot of investors says, you know, अगर product market fit हो गया तो लेके आना बात करेंगे. तो आपके हिसाब से मतलब product market fit है क्या? And when do you realize that you have got a product market fit for scaling?
So one of the definition of product market fit is, let's say you have today 100 customers, and you do a survey with 100 customers that tomorrow if I shut my service or product, will you be disappointed? And if you have more than 60% of them saying, yes, I will be disappointed, then that is one way of analyzing your product market fit. But if you have a low number, then I think you need to rethink your product to begin with, right? And the challenge is in early days, you know, there's a lot of like false alarms, right? Like you feel in your mind that you have hit a product market fit because obviously you're biased as founder. But it's about like how you actually have an unbiased opinion, you know, using feedback from the customer and using signals from the market. So that I would say is one. Second, in my opinion, is how is your retention in business? In any business, whether it's enterprise business, whether it's consumer business. In consumer business, you know, अगर आप Flipkart launch कर रहे हैं, you know, the first sale, you end up paying more acquiring that customer. So unless you have repeat business, you don't really have a business. You know, so how can you establish that you have repeat business, or you know the same customer is coming back over and over again? Or in enterprise, you know, they are giving you orders, you know, almost every month or whatever the order value is. That I would say is like product market fit.
I think it's that, you know, go and look up lifetime value of customers. Look at what is your cost of customer acquisition, and then we divide these two things. We get what is we call a God metric. So do definitely figure out what is your God metric, because if you have a decent God metric which is above 3 or above 5, you know, you are in a great position to invest into growth and, you know, scale like crazy. A lot of people have a great God metric but they don't invest and scale, and that's the biggest disservice they are doing to their business and obviously everyone else. So that is just, I mean, I'm a नया MBA जो होता है वो ज़्यादा उछलता है, तो मैं जरा अभी सीख रहा हूँ, तो मैंने सोचा आपको भी थोड़ा ज्ञान बढ़ा दूँ. तो मतलब these are all what they teach in the MBA schools. तो अभी मैं थोड़ा बहुत पढ़ाई कर रहा हूँ, तो इसलिए मैंने सोचा बता दूँ थोड़ा सा. Anyways, I think, you know, great about your journey, but I think one of the big things that we all want to know here from this in this room is how Calcutta can do, or how Calcutta can evolve as a location, as a market. You have been from Calcutta, you were born in Calcutta. In fact, we figured out that you know, our fathers or forefathers have been in same business. So Calcutta is like that. अब यहाँ खड़े-खड़े 4 रिश्ते निकल जाते हैं. So so you have got great roots in Calcutta. Now, how can Calcutta evolve? You know, you have seen the best of the places. You have built a business there. What can Calcutta do to, or what can entrepreneurs in Calcutta do to get not even 10% of that, at least 25% of what can be achieved in Silicon Valley?
See, one thing which I hear, right, like meeting different people is like, if you compare Calcutta to Bangalore or Bombay, you know, work culture is very bad and this and that, but I feel, Abhishek, that that's where the opportunity is. You know, when the standard is low, and you know, when you come up with when you are establishing a company with great work culture, or you know, even see the simple thing which I realized is sometimes missing. And you know, I would say that when I compare the team in India versus US, and like, you know, comparing work culture in India versus US, is that what I've realized is the simple idea of what you're thinking and what you're saying and what you're doing. You know, if there is very strong consistency across the three, I mean, you will bubble up in the top 1 percentile in the long run in a big way. And it is such a simple concept. But what I realized is the idea of sometimes, you know, the uncomfort of not having an unpleasant conversation upfront, sometimes you end up compromising trust in the long run, right? Like आप आज, you know, आपका customer है, आपको पता है आप कल नहीं deliver कर सकते हैं, पर आप सोच रहे हैं दिमाग में, यार इसको बोलेंगे तो ये चढ़ जाएगा मेरे पे, इसको यही बोल दो हाँ हो जाएगा, right? उसको यही बोल दो हाँ कल पैसे दे देंगे, पर कल भी आया, परसों आया, काम नहीं हुआ, आप उसको कॉल भी नहीं कर रहे हैं, आप उसका कॉल भी नहीं उठा रहे हैं. जनरली ये होता है बिजनेस में, राइट? But this is where I see there is a massive opportunity that if you tell the customer और आप जिससे भी बात कर रहे हैं देखिए because of this reason ये नहीं हो सकता है and I need 2 weeks and that conversation will be very unpleasant. Okay, you will get gali from that person, you have to listen to it, but then after that conversation is done, after 2 weeks you delivered, you will restore your reputation and trust in the long run in a big way. That person may have had bad conversation with you for that 5 minutes, but after 1 year, 1 month, 6 months, they will respect you a lot. And I feel this is such a big differentiator, you know, that you can actually build a massive company and great culture, you know, just with these simple things.
Absolutely, I think, you know, we always say as entrepreneurs, and we have heard so many people, and even the best of the people say that, you know, when there are problems, there is an opportunity. And a lot of times when we see problems in our local city, you know, we say, यार यहाँ तो बहुत पंगा है, काम नहीं होगा. जब problem है तो वहीं पे opportunity है, and I think we can make the most of it. Hopefully, we will make the most of it because to shine out of Calcutta is much easier. You know, if you have to shine with the same talent and the same caliber in Mumbai, I think it will be a nightmarish job. It's very difficult. But you can shine here and you still have business. You know, so a lot of time people say, यार Bangalore में तो tech talent बहुत आराम से मिलता है. मिलता है, but वहाँ उसको लेने वाले भी 100 लोग हैं. There are 100 tech talent, but there are 100 people also who hire them. So the probability you will get is very low. In Calcutta, you have 5 tech talent. I mean, just a comparison, and you have got 5 people to hire them. So the problem is the same, right? In fact, since there are 100 people, there is more attrition. Here there are 5 people, there is less attrition. So in that way, if you see, it's a much better place to build a business. And I have always said that, and you know, I think you have to just work on it. So guys, listen, I think, you know, I will scoot off, and I will let Monish grill Ashish. Ashish, I'm extremely sorry.
No problem.
You know, I think, I mean, by the way, it was not my mistake. The guys who came late, it's their mistake, right? We wanted to start at 4 sharp. You know, some of you came at 4:30. So anyways, so I have to, if I don't go, I have to buy a PS4 for my son, which I don't want to invest in that.
Which you will buy regardless. So.
Anyways, not now, maybe later on, you know. So अभी तो पैसे बचाते हैं. So I'll let Monish talk, and then obviously the stage is open for you guys, right? Thank you so much for being understanding. Thanks.
Thank you.
So does the audience want to ask anything particular with Ashish? Or
so you are building a service business, and so what we understand is product business more standardized and service business is customizable, right? So in that case, service business is more dependent on human resource and people than a product business. So what are the difficulties you found in scaling up a service business? So did you find difficulty replicating the human resource of people who are actually deploying the services to the customer?
See, I feel that to build scale in any company, whether it's product or services, I think the big thing is culture, okay? And yes, you know, the old school way of like doing it is you have hierarchy, right? You have like managers at different levels, people report into managers, and then managers, they micromanage everybody and all that stuff. But I would say the culture is the biggest reason on how you can scale a company very well. And when I say culture, what I mean is that the behavior and the values which are not said in the company, but which are actually done. You know, what are the kind of people who are getting promoted, right? What are the kind of people who are getting fired? What are the reasons, you know, which the CEO or the founder, they talk about when they are appreciating somebody? And what are the reasons they talk about when, you know, they are giving tough feedback? I think having a strong culture is the backbone of any business, you know, to scale it to the next level. Otherwise, you know, if you have to explain every person, you know, what a good behavior looks like in a company, and if that thing is not obvious, then you have to work on the culture before working on anything else, in my opinion.
So I had a question. I want to know about your company, YMediaLabs. Like, what do you do exactly, and how is it different from other companies in the same field?
So what we do is we work with, yes, I think it would be a good time. So what we do is we work with other brands, whether it's PayPal, Apple, Google, we work with American Express, on what should be the digital experience for a consumer. So let's say with American Express, today you go log in americanexpress.com, you see all your transactions. But the next generation experience is that American Express is giving you an idea of your financial wellness, right? It's not about going through the transaction because that's very hard to consume, right? But it's telling you that your income is this much, but you're overspending for the past 3 months. And telling you that every month you get 3 sources of income, but this month you've gotten 2. Why? Like being more proactive. So that is the kind of service we provide, right? And then this is our 11th year in business. And last year we actually created a short video to relive some of the main moments over the years. So I'm just going to play that quickly. So that's what we do. And any other question you have?
Yeah, so I wanted to know that how are you different from other companies in the same field?
Great question. In fact, this is a big challenge, in the industry in general, right? Like, like providing design, providing engineering, a lot of other companies do it, right? So when we actually stand in front of any client and we are pitching to them, right? One of the big things we focus on is our mission is to export Silicon Valley to the rest of the world. And Silicon Valley to us is not a zip code or location, it's a mindset, which is grounded in experimentation and speed. And one of the things we focus on is, some of our biggest competitors, they have worked with Google and Apple and Fortune 500 companies, and we have worked with 30 of them, and which is great, right? But everyone has done it. What's so unique about you? And we focus on is that, yes, like some of the other companies who are pitching to you, we have worked with big companies, but what we have done is we have worked with the future Fortune 500, which is, like for instance, we worked with this startup called Credit Karma. We worked with the founders themselves. They are a 2 people, team, only 2 founders. And now they are a $4 billion company. So this is the company which is going to be the next, Fortune 500. And that claim is very hard, to make because, very few companies are at our level have actually worked with, that next generation Fortune 500 companies. So that is a big one. Second one is we talk about that where our offices in a 15-mile radius, we have Apple, we have Google, we have Facebook, and Twitter, Uber, if you expand the radius 25 miles, right? Salesforce, you name it, we have it, right? And our team, some of the people we have hired, they come from these world-class companies. And those are the people who will be working with you. So, that's a very big claim because other than Silicon Valley, there is no other place in the world who can claim that type of ecosystem. So, this is how we would differentiate. And it has happened over the years. It's not been easy, but it's very important in business to differentiate that.
So my question is that you said something interesting even earlier about how you've partnered with future Fortune 500 companies, right? And I'm guessing that one of the reasons for your success might be that you might have taken an equity stake in them very early on, right? So which is a big bet to make, and which is to you in good stead now. But how do you continue to identify those companies where you want to partner with them early on in their journey? Because you're almost being a test of plus their tech solution provider, right? So I found it very interesting. I'd love to know.
Yeah. So I'm not that smart as I may sound, because that company Credit Karma, which is $4 billion.
Right.
So when this was 2010 or something, he was strapped for cash, and he was like, Ashish, I would love to work with you, and we were charging him close to $100,000 or so for designing and developing the app and all that. And he was like, Ashish, I'm really strapped for cash right now. Do you take equity? Right? And I told him, I can't really take equity because either I take your equity or pay my rent. So I can't really take equity. So I have to take cash. So somehow he managed, and he gave me cash. And that is probably one of the biggest blunders I've done in my life. Because that $100,000 is worth more than $30 million today. Right? And what I've realized after that is, when I'm putting bets in some of these companies, is number one, the founder is the most important thing for me, right? Like what kind of insight or domain knowledge they have, or what kind of journey they've been to get to this product, right? Like that is very important for me. Number two is, do I get the feeling that this person will be successful regardless of me? That is important, right? Like, because we want the founders to be independent, right? And these are some of the things I focus on, when I'm like investing or picking the startups we work with where we are taking equity. Because taking equity, there is a lot of risk on our side. We have real cost. Like having a team of 150 people in Silicon Valley is massively expensive. So if that equity doesn't go anywhere, then we have lost a lot of money on the people who worked on it. So, these are some of the ways we would do. And fortunately, what has happened is, some of the companies we said no to, it was a big mistake, but over the years, I got connected with founders where I personally invested, in some of them, like Robinhood. It's a stock trading platform in the US. They're valued at like $7 billion today. Then Latch, then people.ai. But then I've kind of learned it the hard way,
There's also a very popular trend which is going on that we need to specialize in a niche in order to cut the competition. So what do you think about that? Like for someone who's started just 2 years ago and is into mobile application development, does it make sense to specialize in a niche or play broad?
See, I would say today, mobile application has become like web was in 2009. Okay, Like when I started, there was no such thing as mobile design. SMS was mobile design. There's no such thing as mobile design, right? What is mobile design? So when I started, it was such a new market and it was a niche and it was pretty much non-existent. So when and another big advantage we had was iPhone development was a completely different tech stack. If you are a web developer, doesn't mean you'll know iPhone development because it was different technology, right? So that gave us a, some niche in, if we are doing iPhone design development, then we are specialists in that. Now, fortunately, what happened was iPhone market just took off, right? Like it has like eclipsed web now, right? So now we are in a different phase, but we grew with it. Now there was a little bit of luck, and then there was a little bit of like we put the bet on mobile design development, and it worked out. And today, when you look at like what that is today, I think you have to look at what is the technology which is going to be big in the future. Now, you will never get a foolproof answer, by the way. You will have to take a chance, and then, and I feel there's a lot of luck involved, okay? You can't really like take credit for a lot of things happen, in business. So in today's world, it can be like, how you can offer some of the data science solution. Because I feel that can be like massive in the future. Today it is, I would say it is just getting started. But it will grow a lot in the future. Or, when you are thinking about what should I do, you have to carve out a niche in a particular vertical. So that you have a lot of domain knowledge in that, like financial services, the highly secure environment. Retail is very different. So what happens is like in business, if you have done 3 business in financial services, then people look at you as a specialist. And they want to work with you because they know that you understand them, right? And so having these type of early strategies really help.
Thank you.
So Ashish, like you invest in a lot of startups in US, in India. What kind of trend do you see about startups in India? What opportunities you see for startups in India? What kind of opportunities, what kind of startups are you looking to invest in if they're working in a certain field in India or in US?
So Monish, great question. Last month, I was actually speaking in IMA on how India can leverage technology to become a $5 trillion economy, right? And my opening presentation was that today India's economy is $2.7 trillion dollars, right? And in US, you have 2 companies whose valuation is more than the India's economy. Apple and Microsoft, like close to it. Now it's over 3 trillion. And just imagine if one of those, or forget one of these 20 tech companies which I just told you guys, Twitter, Uber, Salesforce, Adobe, all that, if they had started in India, we wouldn't be talking about how to get to 5 trillion, we would be there already, right? So one of the focus I have is that the scale in US is so massive. Like here, the whole year, the e-commerce is close to $36 billion or something. In US, you have one Monday, which is Cyber Monday, is $8 billion, right? So I am very focused on startups who are starting here, whether it's, here or Bangalore, but their focus is 100% US, in terms of market. And that's what I'm focused on in terms of investment. And I'm not saying that there is anything wrong with consumer startups in India. It's just not my specialization. And I can't really help because I've never worked in India, and India is a segment, I feel there's a lot bigger opportunity there. How you can start a software as a service business in India, but focusing on the US market.
So I had another question. You said that you have two teams. One is in Bangalore and another team is in Silicon Valley. 150, 150. So I want to know that how is the Indian team different from the team in Silicon Valley, or do you see any difference in the two teams that you have, and like how do you perceive it, since you have experience in towards both the places?
See, there is definitely a big cultural difference, okay, between the two, okay, and it's not like it's very intentional, but it is because of historical reasons also. Like today, I have a developer. He an American developer, born and brought up, let's say, in New York City, right? Since 4th grade, he's been seeing Marvel Studios, he's seeing Iron Man, he's seeing Spider-Man, and it's like using iPhone is what he has done in high school, and now he's become an engineer, and what people use there, he has used. That's how he's been brought up. But in India, see, this will change in India, and it has changed also in a big way. In India, आप आज एक developer, designer को आप बोल रहे हो, like, and I'm looking for something what Apple does, make it for me, right? When you say the same thing in US, they get it because they have been brought up like that. In India, आप उसको बोल रहे हो, ये लो iPhone, and ये app है, ये बना दो, ये वो, and you have to understand that is very different. आप उसको एक task दिए हो, वो अपनी जिंदगी में कभी देखा नहीं है, and you are asking him or her to do it, it will not be that easy, and that is where you have to actually invest a lot of time in coaching and all that, right? So that difference is there. Now, the second difference I would say is, it's like the team here is extremely hardworking, okay? Very hardworking, definitely very motivated. But sometimes what I've seen is the cultural difference comes in where Indians are very good at executing tasks, okay? Which is task 1 through 30. It's all defined, let's get it done. And which is also a strength, by the way. Okay, getting things done is a big strength. But then, if things are not very well defined, and you have to make a decision based on very limited information, and there's a lot of ambiguity involved, that is where there are a lot of challenges. And in real world, that's what happens. You have to make decisions based on limited information. There's no perfect scenario. So that is a challenge. But at the same time, if you look at one thing which I really value, and I, owe it to Calcutta, and like I went to South Point High School and I loved it, and sure, things could have been better and all that, but you know what? It is a big part of who I am today. So I have to give a lot of credit to my school. And one of the thing is that, it's like this art and science of working hard is very, very important in life. Today, if you look in Silicon Valley and you look at Microsoft, and some of the CEOs there, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft from Hyderabad, right? Google CEO Sundar Pichai, he went to IIT Kharagpur, right? Then Shantanu, Adobe Shantanu, I forget his last name, but Narayan, right? He is the CEO of $120 billion company. And then, Nikesh Arora, I can give you like 7 other names, right? Of like companies, CEOs who are $100 billion plus market cap. And this has not just happened by chance, okay? There's a strong trend here. And I would say that it is because of, the idea of hard work. You cannot like compromise, and I feel like as a culture we get that naturally. Okay, I'm not saying everyone is the same, but that is an advantage, and I think that should be leveraged, a lot, and probably a big part of what has happened in Silicon Valley over the years. it's like Indians going to Silicon Valley, there's a very specific focus. Because if they are not born and brought up there, what are they doing there? They're there for work, right? So that motivation, hard work, discipline is probably a big part of like why, how you see like all these CEOs, of Indian origin today. So there are advantages, there are disadvantages, and the disadvantage is more on, as I said, cultural side, like, how do you become creative, how do you not stick to convention, like, another thing I've seen is, when you are, thinking about different solution and unconventional solution, sometimes that also becomes a little challenging, right, like, and those are things which will change, as the culture evolves.
So Ashish, during your past 11 years journey at YML, the one mistake which you said was not missing out on investing in Credit Karma, but like for other entrepreneurs here, any other mistakes which, if you could rectify, you would advise them that don't make these mistakes in your journey.
See, one thing which I heard a lot when I started my startup was, team is everything, and it took me 5 years to understand that, because I was like, man, I don't get this, right? Like, team is everything, but it's actually sales is everything. It's like revenue is everything. Is it like making money is everything? I don't understand why people keep on saying team is everything. And what I realized is that having the right team, I would say there are two reasons, for the success of YML. One is obviously starting at the right time, and there's a lot of luck involved, and iPhone going to the next level and all that. But second reason is the building the right team, right? And it took us a lot of time to get to this stage and mindset. And one of the big things I've seen is, if you don't have the right team, you end up spending time and energy in things which are not critical to the business. There are 98% of the activity in business which, as a CEO or founder, it should not concern you, because the outcome of that is not significant enough. And when you have right people in the right place, they make the right call for you. And you have a lot more fluid running company, right? And like, one of the first things I have with anyone who report into me, right, today is, day one I tell them, look, this is how we will operate. There will be few decisions where I listen to you, but I am the only decision maker. Okay, you don't get to pick. And there are few things like company direction, or like hiring the most senior people in the company, or making a choice in like whether you want this company strategy or that company strategy, and internal company values and all those things. But then there are a lot of decisions which I am going to let you make it, and there may be a good chance that we may not agree, okay? But if I don't agree with you, I'll say that I disagree, but I still commit to it. But then you have to own your decision, which means that if you are right, then next time if I have to disagree with you, I'll think 3 times. But if I am right, next time you disagree with me, you have to think 3 times, right? And that's how you build that culture where you're not micromanaging, people are owning their own decision, and they're owning the outcome, and not just because like the manager said so and all that. And that's true at all levels, not just at my level, and that has been a big reason, of how, yeah.
And how about any mistakes which?
I mean, this was a big mistake early on, right? Like, not having the right team. It's like, for me early on, there may be 5 different reasons we would compromise on hiring the right person. We would be like, oh, we interviewed 3-4 people. He or she is the cheapest salaried person, let's just go with this person because they're all doing the same work, right? Like, how does it make a difference? This took us a lot of time, as I said, like 4 to 5 years until, we got to the stage where, it's not about hiring the cheapest, it's about hiring the right person.
So like, how do you know like whether the candidate is the right person or not? Like, how do you do your hiring? Like, is there some hiring mantra, things that you look at, like a checklist of things that this candidate, like attitude is very important for you, then communication maybe, integrity is very important. So what is it that you look for you which ensures you internally that yes, he's the right fit for us?
See, for me personally, when I'm interviewing, I'm looking for curiosity as a very big reason. I'm looking for integrity, and integrity is not just like, lying. Integrity is also around like how consistently they're answering something, right? Like, you're asking the same question in 3 different ways, but the answer is completely different. Then you can tell like, something is off, right? Then I am personally very biased towards like if that person is reporting into me, then will I be able to work with him or her on a daily basis? And my litmus test is, you are in a mall somewhere, right? And if you see that person like from far off, will you say hi to that person? And if you cannot, then you shouldn't be hiring that person because you'll be working with this person every day. So these are some of the things for me, and in general, the functional side is whether you're a designer, developer, project manager, then the people who are expert in that, they would take that test, and that is also important. But that's the combination we kind of look for.
So bootstrapping is obviously a very difficult phase for a company, but another challenging part is the growth. How do you grow the company? After you validated your business model, how do you grow it? How do you manage it? And how do you ensure that that growth keeps on coming? What would you recommend?
See, one of the things in our business is that having like a great sentiment around customers has been a very big reason for our growth, which is like if you treat the customer very well, and your customer service and all those things are very well, then what happens is you don't have to really invest a lot in the growth comes to you, which is the number one reason like we just have one salespeople, right, person, right? And yeah, you can have the growth and you can have a team of 20 salespeople, but then salespeople are not billable. So that's a cost to the company, and the way we have managed is instead of having 20 salespeople, we have added that cost or part of that cost in servicing the customers, right? And that's why it's organic. So that is one. Second, what we have done is, maybe it is more relevant for environment here, is like in businesses we've had credit line in the past, and sometimes we have leveraged that, but then we have leveraged to the point where we know how to pay it back, and it has been a lot more temporary, to give that boost for that limited period of time rather than way of working, right? And that has served very well, every now and then.
So I have a practical question for you. As a media company or consulting this big company, say you build something for one, maybe mobile app for a company, and that is going on well. Okay, you have done some traction with the customers also, and now a new investor comes up for the company and he says this is not good looking. I want to change this. And then how to handle this kind of scenario? So basically, you build something with your knowledge, maybe with feedback from two companies, and now the new guys have come on the board or director or something, and this is not good enough. You can't want to change this and that. And how do you handle that for your clients?
Well, the first reason you've got to ask is, why is this not good enough? Right? Is this not good enough because it doesn't look good? It is not good enough because it's not achieving the business results anymore. It's not good enough because you just feel that way. What is the reason, right? And you start there, and then you get into like what part of this is not good enough and what part you should be changing, and then accordingly, make a call.
And you actually do it, or you actually explain him that this is the way we have developed it, this is the UI and UX process for that, and you are not saying which is right, or maybe English is saying that. Do you don't tell him that you are wrong or something like that?
If we strongly feel that they are wrong and we can validate that, look, the customers are saying that this is working. Look at the conversion, which is a lot higher than the industry standard. Then you have an argument. But you can't just say to investors that because I feel this way, I'm right. Because that doesn't really go very well. So, yes.
Yeah, when you are the face of the company and all the client want to talk to you only, how you handle that? Sorry for everyone.
See, listen, that's a very good question, and the way I manage is like my top 10 clients, I have recurring meetings with them, set, right? Like once a month I'll meet them, once in 3 months I'll meet them in person. And then with some of the other clients, it's not that you don't give them time, but when you give them time, you take someone else with you, right? So that you are introducing whoever that person is, so that you're building that trust. And sometimes you also have to invest in a few things so that that person can do that, special treatment to the customer, so that their relationship and trust is established independent of you. It shouldn't be like whenever the customer calls you, he gets it done. Or when he works with the other person, never. Because then it will backfire and keep on calling. Because that's the only way to get things done. I mean, it's like we have been in business for 11 years. So if I tell you that we have had 0, then I would be lying to you. So are you interested in anything particular?
Senior execs, the team that you're talking about,
Yeah.
which matters the most.
Yeah.
How you actually deal with such tough scenarios where you have to go for it or leave it.
See, then you have to get into the reason of like why that executive is leaving. So, in case of if they have found a better opportunity, right? Well, in that case, you will need to work with that person on like what the new pay they're getting and all that. And you should be very selective with this, by the way, right? Like one of the big things in our company is I know everyone who's in the top 10 percentile of the company, okay, like in terms of performance, executives or not. And then, you have the rest of the team, and you have to make sure the key people in the company are very well taken care of, financially, emotionally, professionally, relationship-wise, all those things. And still, if you end up losing somebody, well, then, that's what life is, right? Like, you will end up losing somebody. But what is also important is when you lose somebody, how you treat them. Because when they leave, we have had incidences when great people have left us, and some of them have actually come back also. And it's not just that, right? Even if they don't come back, that's how you build reputation in the ecosystem, right? Like they left you, but still they talk great things about
They're
it.
your biggest brand ambassador.
Yeah.
How about clients?
Clients, sometimes, we actually let go of the clients ourselves, because they are probably not the right kind of clients for us. And sometimes if, we have lost a client, again, you have to try your level best not to lose them. But if you cannot make it work, how you treat them during this time. See, customer satisfaction is a very, very big deal in our company. If we are losing a client, there is a very good chance someone is going to get fired. And those two things are very much related, right? And obviously you have to look into like the reason and all those things, but and that's why I think people do everything, whatever it takes, not losing the client because of this culture.
one of the follow-up questions to the gentleman's is, in India, managing customers' expectation is always a challenge. How is it in US, or how's your experience been about it? Like, they expect us, like something very grand, and they don't have a very clear vision about it, and they're not even willing to pay enough to match the expectation.
See, I feel, yes, I think this is probably, at a higher level in India. I mean, same thing happens in US too. One of the big things is we would talk about, when we are with customers, we would actually talk about the uncomfortable things also. And we would talk about the risk also, openly. It's not like, everything is butter on ice, everything is going great, right? Like, which is a general tendency, to a customer you want to show like everything is going to be perfect, right? Like, because that's how you make a sale. But this actually doesn't work very well in the long run, right? Like, you talk about the risk, you talk about what you are doing, obviously you have to, but you should also talk about what you are not doing, so that it is clear that this is the limit of how you'll operate. And then I think the most important thing is when things go south, right? You should be calling them. They should be calling you. Because when that starts to happen, they're going to make your life miserable. And then, at some point you will get fired or whatever it is, right? Like, it is always great to proactively talk about the not so pleasant things rather than, not take calls and all those things.
Avoid them.
Yeah.
So any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, I had a question. So you said that you usually recruit people from the best companies. They have worked in Apple and Google and stuff like that. But I personally feel that when I recruit people in my firm, I don't see that they have worked with the best of companies and all. And I see that they come from middle class families mostly. And when you train them, you see that they have a lot more potential compared to other designers who've come from big companies and all. So how do you justify that?
See, it's not like every person who works at like only worked at Google, Apple, or Facebook, but we are one of the big things internally for us is when a designer joins YML today, right? Like, some of them are actually very young in their career, but the brand we have in the valley is that you join YML in 3 years. You will be at a level which you are not going to get anywhere else, even if you invest 8 years. And one of the big things for us is we actually lose people to Google and Uber as well, right? Like, but the good thing is we don't lose people to any riff-raff companies. And I take a lot of pride in that. It's not anyone can poach our people. Sure, like we end up losing people, but that's a big thing. And one of the big thing is, I don't care like whether, you worked in Apple or not. Sure, if you worked in Apple, there is a certain standard and validation. But then if you have the right skill set and you meet, our bar, we want to give you a chance. Because that's how we have created the brand. Like, a designer working at YML for 3 years, the kind of, opportunity they get is pretty amazing. And, that's great even for us from hiring standpoint.
I have a question. Like, since you are working in Valley and obviously having experienced a lot and seen lots of product development startups over there, how much weightage do you give to having an IP or patent before doing a proper launch or start?
See, we don't deal with IP or patent directly. Our clients deal with that. Right. So we have helped our clients file for IP and patent, but then we don't do that directly.
When do they do that? After they become it's basically
no, even like during the design phase, right? Like, to file a patent pending, you don't need a real product. You just need an idea and how it will work.
No, I know that. But the thing is is it okay, because lots of say people at YC or whatever, they say like, like patent is in like immaterial. I mean, like you just first of all actually go and validate stuff, you get a few customers, get on running, and like patent can be done anytime later. And there
it all depends what you're doing. That is true in 95% of the case. But in very limited case, patent can be important depending on like, if it is algorithm or whatnot. But generally speaking, it is generally not, because see, the reason they say it is, investor is a lot more concerned about your adoption and consumer usage. They don't care about the patent, because a customer doesn't care about the patent. They care about how good your product is, and that's what investor cares about, right? And in big companies, what I've seen is they file patent not to go after other companies, but to protect themselves. And that's the difference.
It's also very costly.
Yeah, that's the reason actually. You're wasting funding something.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know that where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Oh man. It's one of the big thing is when I look at like the company, there are two sides of the vision. Okay, one is a lot more business driven and customer driven, which is we want to solve the problem of some of the biggest and most innovative companies' CEO, right? We don't want to solve a problem for a VP, right? Like, we want to solve a problem which will transform the company. And fortunately, what has happened, whether you're a bank, whether you're a retailer, whether you're a healthcare company, digital has become a big focus for a CEO. So that has worked well for us. And that is obviously a big part of our vision. But on the other side, which I think very few companies talk about, the vision I have is, I call it like YML Mafia, okay? Facebook, it's part of PayPal Mafia. And I can give you 7 other names you may not recognize, but they are very big in US. Now the idea is very similar, where none of them are working at PayPal today. It's 2020, they started in 1999. But all of them are either founder or investor or CEOs of billion-dollar company each, right? And similar concept is what I have is, today, some of the team members, they may not be working at YML. But what I want to see 10 or 15 years down the lane is, all these people, they've started big companies or great companies or even running great departments in some Fortune 500 company. But the common link was YML. 15 years ago, they all worked at YML. And that's a very big deal for me personally.
It's a great vision. Very nice. One thing, you said that your company is growing at a very strong rate, right? Is it because of your company or is it because of the overall market that is growing? So what is that?
Market is definitely a big reason. Like, we are in digital space and there's a big demand, that is there. But I would also say because of the team and the brand and reputation and customer feedback and what we have received over the years is a big part of the growth, right? But market is something sometimes you don't control, and that's where I think luck also comes into the picture. And that's where I think luck is something which is a big part of your growth.
For a startup, nowadays the concept of lean methodologies we hear everywhere. Like, you are from Silicon Valley, there the lean methodology concept came actually, building a minimum viable product and then build, test, learn. So how do you see this difference in India and Silicon Valley?
I mean, I don't see any difference because the methodology is the same, right? The idea is, in this, the basic essence is that before you invest a lot of money in something, you should test whether you're building the right thing, right? It's like the difference between building the product right or building the right product. So lean methodology helps you build the right product, right? And the idea is that, let's say, you come up with I'll just take this example, Uber riding, right? You can call cabs on demand, all those things. How do you know it is going to work? The way you do it is, first, you start with your friends and family, right? Like, what do you think about the idea? And you also talk to people who are very blunt to you. They're like not just saying it will work when they feel it will not work, right? So that's where you start. Second step is, and this is actually done very well there in Silicon Valley, and it should work well here also, is you come up with some ads on Facebook or Google, especially I think Facebook. But there's an app which lets you call cab on demand. And you should track like what is the click through, how many people are clicking on it, which shows by which you are validating the demand. You've not even built anything, because building takes time, effort, money. You've validated the demand. Once you have validated, out of 1,000 page views, if you see 200 of them have clicked on it, clearly it means something, it's a problem. You see what I'm saying? And then you invest in building it, and you invest in like build a small first version rather than build the whole 9 yard. So that's, I think the methodology is the same, it shouldn't be any different. I think we can take one last question.
So like for a India-based, data and analytics selling startup, okay? So basically like there are consumers who actually like put on some data, and the startup actually like analyzes and creates some information-based stuff, and then it provides back to the the buyers. Now the thing is like this in India so far is okay, but I'm like you said actually like startups obviously that you want to look at, they need to have a big focus on the US market and all. Now US is very sensitive to data and how it's handled and managed and etc. So what are the differences and what are the precautions that a startup can take or should take, and if they are to focus on the US market for that type of stuff?
See, it all depends which industry you're in. Okay,
it's basically a recruitment HR.
So recruitment HR is not an industry which is like that sensitive also. Obviously data in general is very sensitive. But if you're dealing in financial services, healthcare, all those things, you actually have to comply to regulation, right? And when it comes to HR or recruitment, I think using the world-class products, whether you're using Google and whether you're how you're storing database, who are the people who are touching the information. If you make it very transparent, to whoever you're dealing with in US, I think that's one way to do it. And on your side, you should regulate, how you manage the flowing of data and all that. But using industry standard is very important, right? Like you are not trying to use some company which no one has ever heard of, right? You just use standard, world-class software.
So it has to be like AWS.
Yeah, AWS and all that, right? Well, all of them come with standard, secure, software. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I would like to thank Ashish for sharing his insight on how he grew such a successful company in US, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toshniwal, for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you.
And we would now ask Monish sir to just give away the memento.
Okay, Monish, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Monish.
Thank you. I would now like to invite all the participants here for a group photo.
This is the most common you have been to me. Right?
Can we smile bit? Should it be visible? Another one. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I would also like to thank Momor. They are our food sponsors for today. Thank you, Momor.